Hello and good evening. Welcome, everyone. Welcome all now and later. Oh yeah, I gotta turn this off, but I just really like Queen Herbie a lot, if I'm saying that correctly. She's so awesome, man. I just dig her lyrics so much. It's my favorite workout music, and anyways, it makes me feel so good. So thank you, Queen Herbie. I appreciate you. We're going to be getting into The Women Who Run with Wolves into chapter 3 tonight. So I just got my tea all hooked up and my water all hooked up. I'm a couple minutes late, but I'm here now. Oh yeah, and tonight is the very first night that I'm using my new camera. Ooh! Oh my gosh. Okay, so yeah. Here we go. All right, into chapter 3. Let's get a sip and do it to it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Nosing out the facts. Oh, where's my glasses? Here's a pair. The retrieval of intuition as initiation. The doll in her pocket. Vasilisa the wise. Vasilisa. I like it. It's like Musafa. Okay. Intuition is the treasure of a woman's psyche. It is like a divining instrument and like a crystal through which one can see with uncanny interior vision. It is like a wise old woman who is with you always, who tells you exactly what the matter is, tells you exactly whether you need to go left or right. It is a form of the one who knows, old La Que Sabe, the wild woman. In the traditions I was raised in, dedicated storytellers were always off under some psychic hill, up on their knees in story dust, brushing away centuries of dirt, digging under overlays of culture and conquests, numbering every frieze and fresco of story they could find. Frieze. Sometimes a story has been reduced to powder. Sometimes portions and details are missing or rubbed out. Often the form is intact, but the coloring is destroyed. But even so, every dig holds hope for finding an entire body of story intact and unbroken. The following tale is just such an incredible treasure. Oh yeah, there's a word in here that I want to look up, right? Okay, so that was just into the second paragraph. Vasilisa. But no, not that. It's like Frieze. Freeze. Okay. Let's find out. Alrighty. Oh my gosh, right? My whole computer setup is completely different now. I had to upgrade my operating system. Everything is just a wee bit different. It's like, I don't know, it's 2022. Okay. Freeze. Oh wow, yeah. I got cords all over the place up in here. Man, it's been a productive Sunday though. Let's see what it says. A broad horizontal band of sculpted or painted decoration, especially on a wall near the ceiling.
Freeze.
A broad horizontal band of sculptured or painted decoration, especially on a wall near the ceiling. Like molding? Oh, there's a picture right here. Wow, okay, so it's sort of like I'll just describe it here. It's like a shoot, I mean, like I could share screen even what it is, but wait, we're reading. So it's like one of those Roman pillar architecture structures. What are they called? Columns, Colosseum, the columns. All right. Anyways, it's the band above the columns. That's the frieze. It's a decoration. Okay. So I miss you so much, Heidi. Oh my gosh. Welcome in. I love you. Holy crap. Welcome everyone. Backwoods. Awesome. Oh, and Scorpio, dude, I saw that you were here earlier. I forgot to shout you out already. Welcome all. So yeah, the freeze. Numbering every frieze and fresco of story they could find. Ooh, how poetic, right? To my mind, the old Russian tale, Vasilisa, is a woman's initiation story with few essential bones astray. It is about the realization that most things are not as they seem. As women, we call upon our intuition and instincts in order to sniff things out. We use all our senses to wring the truth from things, to extract nourishment from our own ideas, to see what there is to see, to know what there is to know, to be the keepers of our own creative fires, and to have intimate knowing about the life, death, life cycles of all nature. This is an initiated woman. Stories with Vasilisa is a central character, as a central character, are told in Russia, Romania, Yugoslavia, Poland, and throughout all the Baltic countries. In some instances, the tale is commonly called Wasilisa, the Wise. I find evidence of its archetypal roots dating back to at least the old horse goddess cults, which predate classical Greek culture. Ooh. Horse goddess cults. Hmm. This tale carries ages old psychic mapping about induction into the underworld of the wild female god. It is about infusing human women with wild women's primary instinctual power, intuition. The pattern for my literary version of the Vasilisa tale spun here was given to me by my aunt Caddy, or Katie. It begins with one of the oldest storytelling devices. Once there was, and once there was not. This paradoxical phrase is meant to alert the soul of the listener that this story takes place in the world between worlds where nothing is as it first seems. So let us begin. Trace B! Yay! Oh, I love yous. I love yous all. Cool Gamer, welcome in. Excellent. And all listeners later as well, right? Because that's the only time that's about to come. The now is what's coming. All right. Vasilisa. Once there was, and once there was not, a young mother who lay on her deathbed, her face pale as the white wax roses in the sacristy of the church nearby. Her young daughter and her husband sat at the end of her old wooden bed and prayed that God would guide her safely into the next world. The dying mother called to Vasilisa, and the little child in red boots and white apron knelt at her mother's side. "Here is a doll for you, my love," the mother whispered, and from the hairy coverlet she pulled a tiny doll which, like Vasilisa herself, was dressed in red boots, white apron, black shirt, and vest embroidered all over with colored thread. "Here are my last words, beloved," said the mother. "Should you lose your way or be in need of help, ask this doll what to do. You will be assisted. Keep the doll with you always. Do not tell anyone about her. Feed her when she is hungry. This is my mother's promise to you, my blessing on you, dear daughter." And with that, the mother's breath fell into the depths of her body, where it gathered up her soul and rushed out from between her lips, and the mother was dead. The child and her father mourned for a very long time, but like the field cruelly plowed under by war, the father's life rose green from the furrows again, and he married a widow with two daughters. Although the new stepmother and her daughters spoke in polite tones and always smiled like ladies, there was something of the rodent behind their smiles, which Vasilisa's father did not perceive. Sure enough, when the three women were alone with Vasilisa, they tormented her, forced her to wait on them, sent her to chop wood so her lovely skin would become blemished. They hated her because she has a sweetness about her that was otherworldly. She was also very beautiful. Her breasts were bounding, while theirs dwindled from meanness. She was helpful and uncomplaining, while the stepmother and stepsisters were among themselves like rats in the awful pile at night. OFFAL. We're going to have to look it up. There's another word up here we got to look up too. One day, the stepmother and stepsisters simply could not stand Vasilisa any longer. Let us conspire to make the fire go out, and then let us send Vasilisa into the forest to Baba Yaga, the witch, to beg fire for our hearth. And when she reaches Baba Yaga, well, old Baba Yaga will kill her and eat her. Oh, they all clapped and squeaked like things that live in the dark. So that evening, when Vasilisa came home from gathering wood, the entire house was dark. She was very concerned and inquired of her stepmother, "What has happened? What will we have to cook with? What will we do to light the darkness?" The stepmother admonished, "You stupid child. Obviously we have no fire, and I can't go out into the woods because I am old. My daughters can't go out because they are afraid. So you are the only one who can go out into the forest and find Baba Yaga and get a coal to start our fire again." Vasilisa replied innocently, "Well, all right, yes, I'll do that." And so she set out. The woods became darker and darker, and sticks cracked under her feet, frightening her. She reached down in the long, deep pocket of her apron, and there was a doll. And there was the doll her dying mother had given her. And Vasilisa patted the doll in her pocket and said, "Just touching this doll, yes, I feel better." At every fork in the road, Vasilisa reached into her pocket and consulted the doll. "Well, should I go to the left or should I go to the right?" The doll indicated yes or no, or this way or that way. And Vasilisa fed the doll some of her bread as she walked and followed what she felt was emanating from the doll. Ooh. Emoji King, welcome, man. Awesome. Bumpadoo. Suddenly, a man in white on a white horse galloped by, and it became daylight. Farther on, a man in red sauntered by on a red horse, and the sun rose. Vasilisa walked and walked, and just as she came to the hovel of Baba Yaga, a rider dressed in black came trotting on a black horse and rode right into Baba Yaga's hut. Swiftly it became night. The fence made of skulls and bones surrounding the hut, began to blaze with an inner fire, so the clearing there in the forest glowed with an eerie light. Now the Baba Yaga was a very fearsome creature. She traveled not in a chariot, not in a coach, but in a cauldron shaped like a mortar which flew along by itself. She rode this vehicle with an oar shaped like a pestle, and all the while she swept out the tracks of where she'd been with the broom made from the hair of a person long dead. Storytelling. And the cauldron flew through the sky with Baba Yaga's own greasy hair flying behind. Her long chin curved up and her long nose curved down. And they met in the middle. She had a tiny white goatee and warts on her skin from her trade in toads. Her brown stained fingernails were thick and rigid like roofs, and so curled over she could not make a fist. Even more strange was Baba Yaga's house. It sat atop huge, scaly yellow chicken legs and walked about all by itself and sometimes twirled around and around like an ecstatic dancer. The bolts on the doors and shutters were made of human fingers and toes, and the lock on the front of the door was a snout with many pointed teeth. Eeh. Vasilisa consulted her doll and asked, "Is this the house we seek?" And the doll, in its own way, answered, "Yes, this is what you seek." And before she could take another step, Baba Yaga, in her cauldron, descended on Vasilisa and shouted down at her, "What do you want?" And the girl trembled. "Grandmother, I come for fire. My house is cold. My people will die. I need fire." Baba Yaga snapped, "Oh, yes, I know you and your people. Well, you useless child, you let the fire go out. That's an ill-advised thing to do. And besides, what makes you think I should give you the flame?" Vasilisa consulted her doll and quickly replied, "Because I ask." Okay, all right. Baba Yaga purred, "You're lucky. That is the right answer." And Vasilisa felt very lucky she had given the right answer. Baba Yaga threatened, "I cannot possibly give you fire until you've done work for me. If you perform these tasks for me, you shall have the fire. If not, dot, dot, dot." And here Vasilisa saw Baba Yaga's eyes turn suddenly to red cinders. "If not, my child, you shall die." Oh no. Shoot. It's hard for me to stay in character when I try and do voices. You shall die. Okay, where does it say that? There it is. So Baba Yaga rumbled into the hovel and laid down upon her bed and ordered Vasilisa to bring her what was cooking in the oven. In the oven was enough food for 10 people, and the Yaga ate it all, leaving just a tiny crust and a thimble of soup for Vasilisa. "Wash my clothes, sweep the yard, and clean my house, prepare my food, and separate the mildewed, the mildewed corn." Oh, I bet that's supposed to be mildew. "The mildewed corn from the good corn." Mildewed? Mildew. Oh no, it's mildewed. Okay, all right. "And separate the mildewed corn from the good corn, and see that everything is in order. I will be back to inspect your work later. If it is not done, you will be my feast." And with that, Baba Yaga flew off in her cauldron with her nose as she winds with her nose as the windsock and her hair as the sail. And it became night again. Vasilisa turned to her doll as soon as the Yaga had gone. "What shall I do? Can I complete these tasks on time?" The doll assured her she could, and to eat a little and go to sleep. Vasilisa fed the doll a little too, then she slept. In the morning, the doll had done all the work, and all that remained was the meal to be cooked. Wow, this little helper doll. In the evening, the Yaga returned and found nothing undone, pleased in a way, but not pleased because she could find no fault. Baba Yaga sneered, "You are a very lucky girl," and then called on her faithful servants to grind the corn, and 3 pairs of hands appeared in mid-air and began to rasp and crush the corn. The chaff flew in the house like a golden snow. Finally it was done, and Baba Yaga sat down to eat. She ate for hours and ordered Vasilisa on the morrow to again clean the house, sweep the yard, and launder her clothes. The Yaga pointed to a great mound of dirt in the yard. "In that pile of dirt are many poppy seeds, millions of poppy seeds, and I want, in the morning, to have 1 pile of poppy seeds and 1 pile of dirt, all separated out from each other. Do you understand?" Dude, this is like the Brothers Grimm all rolled into one, right? Vasilisa almost fainted. "Oh my, how am I going to do that?" She reached into her pocket, and the doll whispered, "Don't worry, I will take care of it." That night, Baba Yaga snored off to sleep, and Vasilisa tried to pick the poppy seeds out of the dirt. After a time, the doll said to her, "Sleep now, all will be well." Again, the doll accomplished these tasks, and when the old woman returned home, all was done. Baba Yaga spoke sarcastically through her nose. "Well, lucky for you that you were able to do all these things." She called for her faithful servants to press the oil from the poppy seeds, and again 3 pairs of hands appeared and did so. While the Yaga was smearing her lips with grease from her stew, Vasilisa stood nearby. What are you staring at? Barked Baba Yaga. May I ask you some questions, grandmother? Asked Vasilisa. Ask, ordered the Yaga. But remember, too much knowledge can make a person old too soon. Vasilisa asked about the white man on a white horse. Aha, said the Yaga fondly. That first is my day. And the red man on the red horse? Ah, that is my riding son. And the black man on the black horse? Ah, yes, that is the third, and he is my knight. I see, said Vasilisa. Come, come, child. Wouldn't you like to ask more questions? Wheeled the Yaga. Vasilisa was about to ask about the pairs of hands that appeared and disappeared, but the doll began to jump up and down in her pocket. So instead, Vasilisa said, No, grandmother. As you yourself say, to know too much can make one old too soon. Ah, said the Yaga, cocking her head like a bird. You are wiser than your years, my girl. And how did you come to be this way? By the blessings of my mother, smiled Vasilisa. Blessings? Screeched Baba Yaga. Blessings? We need no blessings around this house. You'd best be on your way, daughter. She pushed Vasilisa out into the night. I'll tell you what, child. Here. Baba Yaga took a skull with fiery eyes from her fence and put it on a stick. Here, take this skull on a stick home with you. There's your fire. Don't say another word. Just be on your way. Vasilisa began to thank the Yaga, but the little doll in her pocket began to jump up and down, and Vasilisa realized she must just take the fire and go. She ran for home through the dark forest, following the turns and twists in the road as the doll told her which way to go. Vasilisa came through the forest carrying the skull, with fire blazing from its ear, eye, nose, and mouth holes. Suddenly, she became frightened of its weight and its eerie light, and thought to throw it away. But the skull spoke to her and urged her to calm herself and to continue towards the home of her stepmother and stepsisters. And this she did. As Vasilisa came nearer and nearer to her house, her stepmother and stepsisters looked out the window and saw a strange glow dancing through the woods. Closer and closer it came. They could not imagine what it could be. They had decided that Vasilisa's long absence meant she was dead by now and her bones dragged away by animals, and good riddance. Vasilisa advanced closer and closer to home. And as the stepmother and stepsisters saw it was her, they ran to her, saying they had been without fire since she'd left, and no matter how hard they had tried to start one, it always went out. Vasilisa entered the house feeling triumphant, for she had survived the dangerous journey and brought the fire back to her home. But the skull on the stick watched the stepsisters and the stepmothers every move, and burnt into them. And by morning, it had burnt the wicked trio to cinders. Ooh, that's the end of that Vasilisa story, but there's a lot more to come. Wow. So much symbolism too. The white, the red, the black. And the horses. And the Baba Yaga. Man. Oh, Lord. Sometimes I feel like Vasilisa. I'm just like, blink, blink, blink. Like, I don't know. Other times, I don't know. Other times I understand other things. I don't know, man. Okay. And there we have it. An abrupt ending to kick people out of the fairy tale and back into reality again. There are many endings of this story in fairy tales. There are many endings of this story in fairy tales. They are the equivalent of saying boo to bring listeners back to mundane reality. Vasilisa is a story of handing down the blessing on women's power of intuition from mother to daughter, from one generation to the next. This great power, intuition, is composed of lightning fast inner seeking, inner hearing, inner sensing, and inner knowing. Over generations, these intuitive powers became as buried streams within women, buried by disuse and unfounded charges of disrepute. However, Jung once remarked that nothing was ever lost in the psyche. I think we can be confident that things lost in the psyche are all still there. So too, this well of women's instinctual intuition has never been lost, and whatever is covered over can be brought back out again. Bam, right? All new moments, all the now moments, right? Concurrently, even maybe, right? To grasp the import of such a tale, we understand that all its components represent characterizations of a single woman's psyche. So all aspects of the story belong to and elucidate an individual psyche undergoing an initiatory process. Initiation is enacted by completing certain tasks. In this tale, there are 9 tasks for the psyche to complete. They focus on learning something of the ways of the old wild mother. Through competition of these tasks, a woman's intuition, that knowing being who walks wherever women walk, looking at all things in their lives and commenting on the truth of it all with swift accuracy, is reset into women's psyche. Those cutting comments is that what the intuition is? I mean, maybe if we're healed people. The goal is a loving and trusting relationship with this being whom we have come to call the knowing woman. Excuse me. The essence of the wild woman archetype. In the rite of the old wild female goddess, Baba Yaga, these are the tasks of initiation. The first task, allowing the too good mother to die. In the opening of the tale, the mother is dying and bequeaths to her daughter an important legacy. The psychic tasks of this stage in a woman's life are these: accepting that the ever watchful, hovering, protective, psychic mother is not adequate as a central guide for one's future instinctual life. The too good mother dies. Taking on the task of being on one's own, developing one's own consciousness about danger, intrigue, politic, becoming alert about oneself, for oneself, letting die what must die. As the too good mother dies, the new woman is born. Ooh, right? Interesting. I mean, we're all having, this experience, even when we're mothers and daughters and sisters and lovers. That whole paragraph was in italics, by the way. In the tale, the initiatory process begins when the dear and good mother dies. She is not there to touch Vasilisa's hair anymore. In all our lives as daughters, there is a time when the good mother of the psyche, the one which served us appropriately and well in earlier times, turns into a too good mother, one which, by virtue of her overly safeguarding values, begins to prevent us from responding to new challenges and thereby to deeper development. In the natural process of our maturing, the too good mother must become thinner and thinner, must dwindle away until we are left to care for ourselves in a new way. While we always retain a core of her warmth, this natural psychic transition leaves us on our own in a world that is not motherly to us. But wait, this too good mother is not all she at first seems. Under the blanket, she has a tiny doll to give her daughter. Ah, there is something of the wild mother underneath this figure. But the too good mother cannot completely live this out, for she is the milk teeth mother, the blessed one every baby needs in order to gain a toehold in the psychic world of love. That's so cool. So even though this too good mother cannot live and influence beyond a certain point of a girl's life, she does right by her offspring here. She blesses Vasilisa with the doll, and this, as we see, is a great blessing indeed. This dramatic psychological dwindling of the overarching mother occurs as a girl moves from the fur-lined nest of pre-adolescence to the jolting jungle of adolescence. For some girls, however, the process of developing a new, more shrewd inner mother, the mother called intuition, was only half completed then. and women so inducted have wandered for years, wishing for and wanting the complete initiatory experience, and patching themselves up as best as they could. The arresting of a woman's initiation process occurs for various reasons, such as when there has been too much psychological hardship early in one's life, especially when there has been no consistent good enough mother in the early years. The initiation may also be stalled or uncompleted because there is not enough tension in the psyche. The too good mother has the stamina of a formidable weed and lives on, waving her leaves and overprotecting her daughter, even though the script says, exit stage left now. In this situation, women often feel too timid to proceed into the woods and resist it all they can. For these, as well as other adult women for whom the rigors of life itself chip and distance them from their deeply intuitive lives, and whose plaint is often, I am so tired of taking care of myself, there is a good and wise remedy. A reaffirming of, a retracing, or reinitiation will reset the deep intuition, regardless of a woman's age. And it is the deep initiation that knows what is good for us, knows what we need next, and knows it with lightning speed, if we will just take down its dictation. Man, some of my lightning speed intuitions lately, they lead me to scary territory, right? Like, that's okay too. I actually am. I keep remembering that my mind is like the sky, and that my emotions are like the weather, and that they come and they go and they pass through, and that I remain, you know? So, welcome, Kelly. Welcome. Welcome, Genevieve. Yay! Awesome. Welcome all. Let me get some drink and find where I am. That took me into thought. Yeah, if we will just take down its dictation. Vasilisa's initiation begins with learning to let die what must die. This means to let die the values and attitudes within the psyche which no longer sustain her. Especially to be examined are those long held tenets which make life too safe, which overprotect, which make women walk with a scurry instead of a stride. The time during which the childhood positive mother dwindles and her attitudes die away as well is always a time of great learning. Although there is a period in all our lives during which we rightfully remain close to the protective psychic mother, for instance, when we are actual children, or during recovery from an illness, or psychological or spiritual trauma, or when our lives are in danger and being quiet will keep us safe. And even though we retain large stores of her succor for life, there also comes a time to change mothers, so to speak. If we stay overly long with the protective mother within our own psyches, we find ourselves impending all challenges to ourselves and therefore blocking future development. While I do not in any way advise that a woman ought to throw herself into torturous or abusive situations, I do mean she must set for herself a something in life that she is willing to reach for and therefore take risks for. It is through this process that she sharpens her intuitive powers. That's cool. Among wolves, when a wolf mother nurses her pups, She and they spend much time lazing about. Everyone slumps over everyone else in a great puppy pile. And the outer world and the world of challenges are far away. However, when the wolf mother finally trains the pups to hunt and forage, she shows them her teeth more often than not. She snaps and demands they keep up. She shoves them down if they don't do what she requires. And so, it is in order to pursue further development that we exchange the hovering internal mother, which was so apt for us when we were young, for another kind of mother, one who lives even deeper in the psychic wilder lands, one who is both escort and teacher. She is a loving mother, but also fierce and demanding. Yeah. Man, right? Motivation, discipline. Okay. Mother of pearls, what is wrong with me? I'm always losing my spot. Requires. And so it is, in order to pursue further development, that we exchange the hovering internal mother, which was so apt for us when we were young, for another kind of mother. Oh, wait. Yeah, I just read all that. She is a loving mother, but also fierce and demanding. Most of us will not let the too good mother die just because it is time. Although this too good mother may not allow our most vivid energies to surface, it is so nice to be with her, so comforting. Why leave? Often we hear voices within our minds which encourage us to hold back, to stay safe. These voices say things like, "Oh, you don't say that," or "You can't do that," or "Well, you're certainly not one of my children, friends, or peers if you do that," or "It's dangerous out there," or "Who knows what will become of you if you insist on leaving this warm nest," or "You're just going to humiliate yourself if you know," or "You're just going to humiliate yourself, you know," or even more insidious still, "Pretend you are taking risks, but secretly stay here with me." These are all voices of the frightened and rather exasperated too good mother within the psyche. She cannot help herself. She is what she is. Yet if we merge with the too good mother for too long, our lives and our gifts for expression fall into the shadows, and we become scant instead of strong. And worse, what occurs when one compresses a vivid energy and allows it no life? We die. We die. We start aging. We get sick. We die. Like the magic porridge pot in the wrong hands, it grows and grows and grows until it explodes. And then you get really sick and die. I'm sorry. I just need to read what she says. It's way better than what I'm saying. It's spilling all of its goodness onto the ground. So we must be able to see that for the intuitive psyche to be invigorated, the nice hovering protector must recede. Or perhaps more accurately, we eventually find ourselves pushed out of that nice, cozy tete a tete, not because we planned it that way, not because we were completely ready. No one is ever completely ready, but because there is something waiting for us at the edge of the woods, and it is our fate to meet it. I like that. It's like who says that quote? The mountains are calling and so I must go. Something like that. Guillaume Apollinaire. Guillaume Apollinaire wrote, "We took them to the edge and bade them fly. They held on. Fly, we said. They held on. We pushed them over the edge and they flew." It is typical for women to be afraid to let the too comfortable and too safe life die. Sometimes a woman has reveled in the protection of the too good mother, and so desires to continue ad infinitum. She must be willing to feel anxious sometimes, otherwise, she might as well have stayed in the nest. Sometimes a woman is afraid to be without security or without certainty for even a short time. She has more excuses than dogs have hairs. She must just simply dive in and stand. She must just simply dive in and stand, not knowing what will happen next. It is the only thing which will retrieve her intuitive nature. Sometimes a woman is so bound up in being the too good mother to other adults that they have latched onto her teats or titas, and are not about to let her leave them. In this case, a woman has to kick them off with her hind leg and go on anyway. And since the dreaming psyche compensates for, among other things, that which the ego will not or cannot acknowledge, a woman's dreams during such a struggle will be filled mm, compensatorily. Compensatorily? To compensate? How do you say that word? Why can't it be on one line? Compensatorily. And chases, dead ends, cars that will not start, incomplete pregnancies, and other symbols which image life not going forward. In her guts, a woman knows there is a deadliness in being the too sweet self for too long. Right? I mean, there's balance. There's balance. So, loosening our hold on the glowing archetype of the ever sweet and too good mother of the psyche is the first step. We are off the teat and learning to hunt. There is a wild mother waiting to teach us. But in the meantime, the second task is to hold on to the doll while we learn its uses. Ooh. So, speaking of teats, I have a story to tell. Okay. I don't know. I was like in my early 20s, and I moved back to California for a while. And when I drove out west, my mom drove with me, and it was a great trip. I mean, there's lots of great stories from that trip. But there's this one where we went and we were visiting the Grand Canyon, and man, was that spectacular. It's one of those things that you could never really, I mean, we could probably find so much. I mean, like I could love finding the ways to explain things so beautifully, right? But like you could never really portray the feeling of something that vast until you have to really see it. You have to be there, and like it's not just what you're seeing, it's what you're feeling. But so we're there, and there's all these signs everywhere, and we see this mule deer, which I've never seen a mule deer before in my entire life. Well, then we realize that there's this baby that's like drinking from the mama mule deer. Oh my gosh, I just realized I made this story way too long. It's not good. I'm gonna have to say the end. So this baby mule deer is drinking, and then all of a sudden it stands up, and it's actually taller than the than the mom. And like we were so startled to see what had happened. Like the baby was so tall, and then my mom just was like, "Whoa, get off the teat." And, like, anyways, the end. I'll never forget. All right, okay. Now I gotta find where I am because I don't know. And shoot, my phone's going off like crazy. That's okay. I'll get to it after this. All right, teats. Okay, yeah, this is a good spot. Yeah. The second task. Oh my gosh, we have 9 tasks. Okay. I better stop telling stories. Exposing the crude shadow. In this part of the tale, the bad, rotten step family marches into Vasilisa's world and begins to make her life miserable. The tasks of this time are learning even more mindfully to let go of the overly positive mother, finding that being good, being sweet, being nice will not cause life to sing. Vasilisa becomes a slave, but it does not help. Experiencing directly one's own shadow nature, particularly the exclusionary, jealous, and exploitative aspects of self, the stepmother and stepsister, acknowledging these unequivocally, making the best relationship one can with the worst parts of oneself, letting the pressure build between who one is taught to be and who one really is, ultimately working towards letting the old self die and the new intuitive self be born. Ooh, that was an italics paragraph too. The stepmother and stepsisters represent the undeveloped but provocatively cruel elements of this psyche. They are shadow elements, meaning aspects of oneself which are considered by the ego to be undesirable or not useful and are therefore relegated to the dark. On one hand, shadow material can be quite positive, for often a woman's gifts are pushed into the dark, hidden there, and waiting to be discovered. On the other hand, negative shadow material, that which busily kills off or detains all new life, can also be turned to one's use, as we shall see. When it erupts and we finally identify its aspects and sources, we are made all the stronger and wiser. In the stage of initiation, a woman is harassed by the petty demands of her psyche, which exhort her to comply with whatever anyone wishes. Compliance causes a shocking realization that must be registered by all women. That is, to be ourselves causes us to be exiled by many others, and yet to comply with what others want causes us to be exiled from ourselves. It is a tormenting tension, and it must be borne, but the choice is clear. Rah! Vasilisa is disenfranchised, for she inherits and is inherited by a family that cannot understand or appreciate her. As far as they're concerned, she is unnecessary. They hate and revile her. They treat her as the stranger, the untrustworthy one. In fairy tales, the role of the stranger or the outcast is usually played by one who is most deeply connected to the knowing nature. I just saw a quote about that. The stepmother and stepsisters can be understood as creatures set into a woman's psyche by the culture to which a woman belongs. The stepfamily in the psyche is different from the soul family, for it is of the superego, that aspect of psyche which is structured according to each particular society's expectations, healthy or not, for women. These cultural, that is, superego, overlays and injunctions are not experienced by women as emanating from the soul self psyche, but are felt as they come from out there, from some other source, which is not innate. Right. The cultural / superego overlays can be very positive or they can be very detrimental. Vasilisa's stepfamily is an intrapsychic ganglia which pinches off the nerve to life's vitality. Ooh, man, you're so good at writing. They enter as a chorus of unredeemed hags who taunt. You can't do it. You're not good enough. You're not bold enough. You're stupid, insipid, vacant. You don't have time. You're only good for simple things. You're only allowed to do this much and no more. Give up while you're ahead. As Vasilisa is not yet fully conscious of her powers, she allows this evil crimp in her lifeline. In order for her to regain her life, something different, something life-giving must occur. The same is true for us. We can see in the story that Vasilisa's intuition into what is happening around her is quite flimsy, and that the father of the psyche doesn't notice the hostile environment either. He is also too good and has no intuitive development himself. It is interesting to note that daughters who have naive fathers often take far longer to awaken. Oh, hey, I got to change the battery pack. Okay, I see where I am. Far longer to awaken. Okay, so yeah, I have a different battery that's just going to be like constant. I hope you guys can still hear me. I'm going to move this battery pack out. I wonder if you all can hear me. Oh, you know what? Before I let anything, let me go snag it. Okay. Son of a gun. I wonder how long that was. I'm going to have to take a look. Which way does this go? Okay, learning curves. I apologize, everyone. Oh my gosh, please release. Thank you. I wonder, can you guys still hear me? Means, I wonder if you guys can hear me. This way. Yeah. Okay. Oh, son of a gun. Everything's okay. Oh, right. Okay, now I just gotta do a little bit of this. Okay, wait. I'm trying to. Yeah, raw. Son of a gun. Yeah, this will be much more fluid once I get that direct power line hooked up. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, okay, all right. Hey, thanks you. Hey, Jenny, awesome. And anybody that I've missed too. Sometimes when I go back and I watch, I see that I've missed people here. I don't think it all comes through through my through StreamYard. But okay, Zebuk. Okay, so wait. So about an hour. But I mean, like I had it on a little longer, so a little longer than an hour. Thank you. Thank you so much. I love it. It's the goddess Freya and the Wheel of Fortune. Okay, off we go now. If I can just find my spots. Life-giving must occur. Okay, so in order for her to regain her life, something different, something life-giving must occur. The same is true for us. We can see in the story that Vasilisa's intuition into what is happening around her. Okay, wait, that's I already read. That if she is herself, she will alienate others. Okay, so we too are pinched off when the step family within us and or surrounding us tells us we are not much to begin with and insists we focus on our shortcomings rather than perceiving the cruelty whirling around us, be it emanating from within our psyches or from without in the culture. However, to see into or through something requires intuition and also the strength to stand upon what one sees. Like Vasilisa, we may try to be nice when we ought to be knowing. We may have been taught to set aside acute insights in order to get along. Right? However, the reward for simply being nice in oppressive circumstances is to be mistreated all the more. Although a woman feels that if she is herself, she will alienate others, it is just this psychic tension that is needed in order to make soul and to create change. Yeah, man. Hermit beast mode. That's where I'm about to be right here. Hermit beast mode with you guys on the YouTubes. And like working on myself, right? Yeah. Okay, so the stepmother and stepsisters scheme to send Vasilisa away, they secretly plot. Go into the forest, Vasilisa. Go to Baba Yaga. And if you survive, which you won't, then we might accept you. This is a very critical idea because many women are stuck halfway through this initiation process, sort of hanging half in and half out of the hoop. Although there is a natural predator in the psyche, one who says, "Die and bah," and "Why don't you give up?" on a rather automatic basis, the culture in which a woman lives and the family in which she was raised can painfully exacerbate that natural but moderate naysaying aspect in the psyche. For instance, women who are raised in families that are not accepting of their gifts often set off on tremendously big quests over and over, and they do not know why. They feel they must have 3 PhDs, or they have to hang upside down from Mount Everest, or that they must execute all manners of dangerous, time consuming, and money eating endeavors to try to prove to their families that they have worth. Now, will you accept me? No? Okay. Watch this. The stepfamily ganglia, of course, belongs to us by whichever means we received it, and it is our work to deal with it in an empowered manner. However, we can see that for the deep work to continue, trying to prove one's worth to the chorus of jealous hags is pointless, and as we shall see, in fact, impedes the initiation. Yeah, it's like you can't go backwards. I mean, thank God, right? Even though sometimes, right? Vasilisa does the everyday chores without complaint. To submit without complaint is heroic seeming, but in fact causes more and more pressure and conflict between the two oppositional natures, one too good and the other too demanding. Like the conflict between over-adaptive and being oneself, this pressure builds to a good end. A woman who is torn between these two is in a good way, but she must take the next steps. In the story, the stepwoman so squeeze the burgeoning psyche that through their machinations, the fire goes out. At this point, a woman begins to lose her psychic bearings. She may feel cold, alone, and willing to do anything to bring back the light again. This is just the jolt the too nice woman needs in order to continue her induction into her own power. One might say that Vasilisa has to meet the great wild hag because she needs a good scare. We have to leave the chorus of detractors and plunge into the woods. There is no way to both stay and go. Vasilisa, like us, needs some guiding light that will differentiate for her what is good for her soul and what is not. She cannot develop by standing around being everyone's bootjack. Women who try to make their deeper feelings invisible are deadening themselves. Amen, dude. The fire goes out. It is a painful form of suspended animation. Yeah. Conversely, and perhaps somewhat perversely, when the fire is put out, it helps to snap Vasilisa out of her submission. It causes her to die to an old way of life and to step with shivers into new life, one which is based on an older, wiser kind of inner knowledge. The third task, navigating in the dark. In this part of the tale, the dead mother's legacy, the doll, guides Vasilisa through the dark to the house of Baba Yaga. These are the psychic tasks of this time. Consenting to venture into the locus of deep initiation, entering the forest, and beginning to experience the new and dangerous feeling Newman of being in one's intuitive power. Learning to develop sensitivity as regards direction to the mysterious unconscious and relying solely on one's inner senses. Learning the way back home to the wild mother, heeding the doll's directions. Learning to feed intuition, feeding the doll. Letting the frail know nothing maiden die even more, shifting power to the doll, i.e., intuition. It's cool. Vasilisa's doll is from the provisions of the old Wild Mother. Dolls are one of the symbolic treasures of the instinctual nature. In Vasilisa's case, the doll represents La Vidacida, the little instinctual life force that is both fierce and enduring. No matter what mess we are in, it lives out a life hidden within us. For centuries, humans have felt that dolls emanate both a holiness and mana, an awesome and compelling presence which acts upon persons, changing them spiritually. For instance, among rustic healers, the mandrake root is praised for its resemblance to the human body, with arms and legs of root, and a gnarl for a head. It is said to be charged with great spiritual power. Dolls are believed to be infused with life by their makers. Some are used in rites, ritual, hoodoo, love spells, and general mischief. When I lived among the Kuna in the Isles off Panama, their small wooden figures were used as markers of authority to remind one of one's own power. Museums throughout the world are filled to overflowing with idols and figurines made of clay, wood, and metal. The figurines from Paleolithic and Neolithic times are dolls. Oh, from, not form. The figurines from Paleolithic and Neolithic times are dolls. Art galleries are filled with dolls. In modern art, Siegel's life-size gauze-wrapped mummies are dolls. Ethnic dolls fill railway gift shops and the gas stations on major interstates. At, eh, oh wait, yeah. Ethnic dolls fill railway gift shops and the gas stations on major interstates. Among royalty, dolls have been given as gifts since ancient times as tokens of goodwill. In rustic churches throughout the world, there are saint dolls. The saint dolls are not only bathed on a regular basis and dressed in handmade clothing, but also taken for walks, so they might see the conditions of the fields and of the people, and therefore intercede with heaven in the human's behalf. Wow, right? All is mentalism. The doll is the symbolic homunculi, little life. It is the symbol of what lies buried in humans, that is, numinous. It is a small and glowing facsimile to the original self. Superficially, it is just a doll, but inversely, it represents a little piece of soul that carries all the knowledge of the larger soul self. And the doll is the voice, in diminutive, of old La Que Sabe, the one who knows. The doll is related to the symbols of leprechaun, elf, pixie, fairy, and dwarf. Ooh. In fairy tales, these represent a deep throb of wisdom within the culture of the psyche. They are those creatures which go on with the canny and interior work, who are tireless. The psyche works even when we sleep, most especially when we sleep, even when we are not fully conscious of what we are enacting. I wonder about that, right? Yeah. So, okay. In this way, the doll represents the inner spirit of us as women, the voice of inner reason, inner knowing, and inner consciousness. The doll is like the little bird in fairy tales who appears and whispers in the heroine's ear, the one who reveals the hidden enemy and what to do about it all. This is the wisdom of the homunculus, the small being within. This is our helper, which is not seeable per se, but which is always accessible. There is no greater blessing a mother can give her daughter than a reliable sense of the veracity of her own intuition. Intuition is handed from parent to child in the simplest ways. You have good judgment. What do you think lies hidden behind all this? Rather than defining intuition as some unreasoned, faulty quirk, it is defined as truly the soul voice speaking. Intuition senses the directions to go in for most benefit. It is the self-preserving, has a grasp of underlying motive and intentions, and it echoes Oh, and it chooses what will cause the least amount of fragmenting in the psyche. The process is similar in the fairy tale. Vasilisa's mother has set an enormous boon on her daughter by binding the doll and Vasilisa to one another. Being bound to one's intuition promotes a confident reliance on it no matter what. It changes a woman's guiding attitude from what will be, to let me see all there is to see. Ooh. Oh, dang, I'm missing all the conversation. It's okay. I'll come back. What does this wildish intuition do for women? Like the wolf, intuition has claws that pry things open and pin things down. It has eyes that can see through the shields of persona. It has ears that hear beyond the range of mundane human hearing. With these formidable psychic tools, a woman takes on a shrewd and even precognitive animal consciousness, one that deepens her femininity and sharpens her ability to move confidently in the outer world. So now Vasilisa is on her way to gain an ember to rekindle the fire. She is in the dark, in the wilds. She can do nothing but listen to the inner voice coming from the doll. She is learning to rely on that relationship, and she is learning yet one more thing. She learns to feed the doll. What does one feed intuition so that it is consistently nourished and responsive to our requests to scan our environs? One feeds it life. One feeds it life by listening to it. What good is a voice without an ear to receive it? What good is a woman in the wilds of megatropolis or daily life unless one can hear and depend upon the voice of La Que Sabe, the one who knows? I've heard women say it, if not 100 times, then 1,000 times. I knew I should have listened to my intuition. I sensed that I should not have done such and such, but I didn't listen. We feed the deep intuitive self by listening to it and acting upon its advice. It is a personage in its own right, a magical, dollish sized being which inhabits the psychic land of the interior woman. In this way, it is like the muscles of the body. If a muscle is not used, eventually it withers. Intuition is exactly like that. Without food, without employment, it atrophies. The feeding of the doll is an essential cycle of the Wild Woman archetype. She who is the keeper of hidden treasures. Vasilisa feeds the doll in two ways. First, with a bit of bread, a bit of life for this new psychic venture, and secondly, by finding her way to the old wild mother, the Baba Yaga. By listening to the doll, at every turn and every fork in the road, the doll indicates which way is home. The relationship between the doll and Vasilisa symbolizes a form of empathic magic between a woman and her intuition. This is the thing that must be handed down from woman to woman. This blessed binding, testing, and feeding of intuition. We, like Vasilisa, strengthen our bond with our intuitive nature by listening inwardly at every turn in the road. Should I go this way or this way? Should I stay or should I go? Should I resist or be flexible? Should I run away or toward? Is this person, event, venture true or false? The breaking of the bond between a woman and her wildish intuition is often misunderstood as the intuition itself being broken. This is not the fact. It is not intuition which is broken, but rather the matrilineal blessing on intuition, the handing down of intuitive reliance between a woman of all females of her lines who have gone before her. It is that long river of women that has been dammed. A woman's grasp of her intuitive wisdom may be weak as a result, but with exercise, it will come back and become fully manifested. The dolls serve as talismans. Talismans are reminders of what is felt but not seen, what is so but is not immediately obvious. The talismanic numen of the image of the doll reminds us, tells us, sees ahead for us. This intuitive function belongs to all women. It is a massive and fundamental receptivity. not receptivity as once touted in classical psychology, that is, as a passive vessel, but receptivity as in possessing immediate access to a profound wisdom that reaches down into women's very bones. Bam! Dang. The fourth task, facing the wild hag. In this part of the tale, Vasilisa meets the wild hag face to face. I want to see if I can get back here a little. Scooch up. All right. The tasks of this meeting are these: being able to stand and face the fearsome wild goddess without wavering, that is, facing the imago of the fierce mother, meeting up with the Baba Yaga, familiarizing oneself with the arcane, the old, the otherness of the wild, residing at Baba Yaga's house for a while, bringing some of her values into our lives, thereby becoming ourselves a little odd in a goodly way. That's eating her food, and learning to face great power, in other words, and subsequently one's own power, letting the frail and too sweet child die back even further. Baba Yaga lives in a house squatting on chicken legs. It whirls and spins when it has a mind to. In dreams, the symbol of house comments on the organization of the psychic space a person inhabits, both consciously and unconsciously. Ooh, right? Ironically, if this story were a compensatory dream, is that how you say that? Compensatory dream, to compensate. The eccentric house would infer that the subject, in this case Vasilisa, is too unremarkable, too middle of the road, and needs to twirl and whirl in order to find out what it's like to dance like a crazy chicken once in a while. Now we can see that the Yaga's house is of the instinctual world, and that Vasilisa needs more of this element in her personality. The chicken-legged house walks about, twirls even, in some hippity-hop dance. This house is alive, bursting with enthusiasm, with joyous life. These attributes are the main fundamentals of the archetypal psyche of Wild Woman, a joyous and wild life force, where houses dance, where inanimates such as mortars fly like birds, where the old woman can make magic, where nothing is what it seems, but for the most part is far better than it seemed to begin with. Ha ha ha! Vasilisa began with what we might call a flattened out, mundane personality. It is just this hyper normalcy that creeps up on us until we have a routine life and a lifeless life without our reality meaning to. This encourages the neglect of intuition, which in turn produces lack of light in the psyche. We must do something then. We must set out into the woods, go find the scary woman, or else one day, as we are nodding down the street, a manhole cover will snap open and whoosh, will be snatched by some unconscious thing, and that will throw us about like a rag, joyously or otherwise, mostly otherwise, but for good outcome. The giving of the intuitive doll by the original sweet mother is incomplete without the task giving and testing done by the old wild one. Baba Yaga is the marrow of the instinctive and integrated psyche. We know this from her knowledge of all that has gone before. Oh, yes, she says when Vasilisa arrives, I know of you and your people. Further, as in other incarnations, as the mother of days and Mother Nyx, or Mother Night, a life, death, life goddess, old Baba Yaga is the keeper of the sky and earth beings, day, rising sun, and night, she calls them, my day, my night. Baba Yaga is fearsome, for she represents the power of annihilation and the power of the life force at the same time. She's Kali. To gaze into her face is to see vagina dentata. vagina dentata, eyes of blood, the perfect newborn child, and the wings of angels all at once. Vagina dentata. Well, I'm looking it up. I have no idea what that means. And I see where I am. Okay. Vagina dentata. Vagina. I mean, it says vagina. Vagina dentata. Dentata. D-A-N-T-A-T-A. Boopadoo. The motif. Oh my God. Just like, right. Okay. The motif of a vagina with teeth occurring in folklore and fantasy and said to symbolize male fears of the dangers of sexual intercourse, especially of castration. Dude, that makes me think of what's his name? He's a famous actor. He says it in a vampire movie. Ryan Reynolds. Okay. Now we know. Ooh, wrong one. Wow. Eyes of blood. The perfect newborn child as the wings of angels all at once. And Vasilisa stands there and accepts this wild mother, divinity, wisdom, warts and all. One of the most remarkable facets of the Yaga portrayed in this tale is that though she threatens, she is just. She does not hurt Vasilisa as long as Vasilisa affords her respect. Respect in the face of great power is a crucial lesson. A woman must be able to stand in the face of power because ultimately some part of that power will become hers. Vasilisa faces Baba Yaga not obsequiously. There we go. Not obsequiously, but boastfully, not boastfully or filled with braggadocio, braggadocio, neither running away nor hiding. She presents herself honestly and just as herself. Many women are in recovery from their nice complexes, wherein no matter how they felt, no matter who assailed them, they responded so sweetly as to be practically flattened. Though they might have smiled kindly during the day, at night they gnashed their teeth like brutes. The Yaga in their psyches was fighting for expression. This too nice over adaptation in women often occurs when they are desperately afeared of being disenfranchised or found unnecessary. Two of the most poignant dreams I've ever heard concerned a young woman who definitely needed to be less tame. The first dream was that she inherited a photo album, a special one with pictures of the wild mother. How happy she was until the next week, when she dreamt she opened a similar album and there was a horrid old woman looking out at her. The hag was possessed of mossy teeth and had black Betelgeuse running down her chin. Ew. Her dream is typical of women who are recovering from being too sweet. The first dream demonstrates one side of the wild nature, the benign and bountiful, and all that is well with her world. But when the mossy wild woman is presented to her, well, could we put this off for a while? The answer is no. The unconscious the unconscious in its brilliant way is offering this dreamer an idea about a new way of living that is not just the two-toothed frontal smile of the too nice woman. To face this wild and creative power in ourselves is to gain access to the myriad faces of the subterranean feminine or subterrene feminine. These belong to us innately, and we may choose to inhabit whichever ones serve us best at whichever time. In this initiation drama, Baba Yaga is instinctive nature in the guise of the witch. Like the word wild, the word witch has come to be understood as a pejorative, but long ago it was an appellation given to both old and young women healers. The word witch deriving from the word wit, meaning wise. This was before cultures carrying the one God only religious image began to overwhelm the older pan, pantheistic cultures, which understood the deity through multiple religious images of the universe and all its phenomena. But regardless, the ogress, the witch, the wild nature, and whatever other creaturas and integral aspects the culture finds awful in the psyches of women are the very blessed things which women often need most to retrieve and bring to the surface. A good deal of literature on the subject of women's power states that men are afraid of women's power. I always want to exclaim, Mother of God, so many women themselves are afraid of women's power. For the old feminine attributes and forces are vast, and they are formidable. It is understandable that the first time they come face to face with the old wild powers. Both men and women take one anxious look and make tracks. All you see of them is flying paw pads and frightened tails. If men are going to ever learn to stand it, then without a doubt, women have to learn to stand it. If men are ever going to understand women, women are going to have to teach the configurations of the wild feminine to them. To this end, the dream making function of the psyche carries the Yaga and all her cohorts right into women's bedrooms at night through her dream time. If we are lucky, the Yaga will leave her big, broad footprints in the carpet at our bedsides. She will come to peer at those who do not know her. And if we are late in our initiations, she wonders why we do not come to visit her, and comes to visit us in night dreams instead. One woman I worked with dreamed of women in long, ragged nightgowns, happily eating things you would never find on a restaurant menu. Another woman dreamed of an old woman in the shape of an old clawfoot bathtub that rattled its pipes and threatened to burst them unless the dreamer knocked out on a wall so the tub could see. A third woman dreamt that she was one of three blind old women, except that she kept losing her driver's license and had to keep leaving her group in order to search for it. In a sense, it could be said that she had difficulty remaining identified with the three fates, the powers which guide life and death in the psyche. But in time, she too learned to stand it, learned to stay close to what she once feared, her own wildish nature. All these creatures in dreams remind the woman dreamer of her elemental life, the Yaga self, the enigmatic and intense power of the life mother. Yes, we are saying that to be Yaga-ish is good, and that we must be able to stand it. To be strong does not mean to sprout muscles and flex. It means meeting one's own numinosity without fleeing, actively living with the wild nature in one's own way. It means to be able to learn, to be able to stand what we know. It means to stand and live. Man. Yeah, not giving up. The fifth task, serving the non-rational. In this part of the tale, Vasilisa has asked Baba Yaga for fire, and the Yaga agrees, but only if Vasilisa will do some household chores for her in exchange. The psychic tasks of this time of learning are these: staying with the hag, acclimating to the great wildish powers of the feminine psyche, coming to recognize and your power and the powers of inner purifications, unsoiling, sorting, nourishing, building energy and ideas, washing the Yaga's clothes, cooking for her, cleaning her house, and sorting out the elements. Not so long ago, women were deeply involved in the rhythms of life and death. They inhaled the pungent odor of iron from the fresh blood of childbirth. They washed the cooling bodies of the dead as well. The psyches of modern women, especially those from industrial and technological cultures, are often deprived of these close-up and hands-on, blessed and basic experiences. But there is a way for the novice to fully participate in the sensitive aspects of the life and death cycles. Baba Yaga, the wise mother, is the teacher whom we can consult in these matters. She instructs the ordering of the house of the soul. She imbues an alternate order to the ego, one where magic can happen, joy can be done, appetite is intact, things are accomplished with gusto. Baba Yaga is the model for being true to the self. She teaches both death and renewal. In the tale, she teaches Vasilisa how to care for the psychic house of the wild feminine. Laundering the Baba Yaga's clothes is a fabulous, fabulous symbol. In the old countries, and still today, in order to launder one's clothes, one descends to the river and there makes the ritualistic ablutions that people have made since the beginning of time in order to renew the cloth. This is a very fine symbol for the cleansing and purification of the entire bearing of the psyche. Wow, I've been doing so much laundry this year. Ablutions. Gotta look it up. Ablutions. A-B-L-U. Okay, wait. I see. I'm right in the middle of this page. Ablutions. Where are you at, Word? Where you go? There you are. A-B-L-U-tions. T-I-O-N-S. Ablutions. Okay. Mid-page. In mythology. That's where I'm at. Ablutions. Burp-a-doo. I missed. Oh, I was going to look up two other words too. I passed them by. Forget what they were. Ablution. The act of washing oneself. Cool.
Ablution.
Cool. A ceremonial act of washing parts of the body or sacred containers. Cool. Ablution. I like it. All right. You're so beautiful. Thank you. Okay. In mythology. Okay, wait, actually, what is that? Ablution. Ritualistic ablution. Yeah, all right. In mythology, the woven cloth is the work of the life mothers. For instance, in the East, there are the three fates, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos. Lachesis, and Atropos. In the West, there is Naashajee, Azdaza, Azdaa. Oh no, it's like ASDZAA with tildes over both the A's. It means the spider woman, who gave the gift of weaving to the Dine, or the Navajo. These life mothers teach women sensitivity to what must die and what shall live, to what shall be carted out, to what shall be woven in. In the tale, Baba Yaga charges Vasilisa to do the laundry, to bring this weaving, these patterns known to the life goddess, out into the open, to consciousness, handling them, washing them, renewing them. To wash something is a timeless purification ritual. It not only means to purify, it also means, like baptism from the Latin baptiza, to drench, to permeate with a spiritual numen and mystery. In the tale, the washing is the first task. It means to make taut again that which has become slackened from the wearing. The clothes are like us, worn until our ideas and values are slackened by the passing of time. The renewal, the reviving, the revivifying takes place in the water, in the rediscovering of what we really hold to be true, what we really hold sacred. In archetypal symbolism, clothing represents persona. The first view, the public gains of us. Persona is a kind of camouflage, which lets others know only what we wish them to know about us, and nothing more. But there is an older meaning to persona, one found in all the Mesoamerican rites, one well known to contadoras y suestinas and curanderas, healers. The persona is not simply a mask to hide behind, but rather a presence which eclipses the mundane personality. In this sense, persona or mask is a signal of rank, virtue, character, and authority. It is the signific, the outward significator. Oh, what? Significator? How do you say it? It's the significator. Yeah, okay. It's the outward significator, the outward display of mastery. I like very much this initiatory task, which requires a woman to cleanse the persona, the clothing of the authority of the great Yaga of the forest. By washing the Yaga's clothes, the initiate herself will see how the seams of persona are sewn, what pattern the gowns take. Soon she herself will have some measure of these personae to place in her closet amidst others she has fashioned throughout her life. Dang, right? It's cool. It is easy to imagine that Yaga's marks of power and authority, her clothes, are made as she herself is fashioned psychologically, strong and enduring. To wash her laundry is a metaphor through which we learn to witness, examine, and take on this combination of qualities. We learn how to sort, mend, and renew the instinctive psyche through a purificatio, the washing of the fibers of being. Vasilisa's next task is to sweep the hut and the yard. In Eastern European fairy tales, brooms are often made of sticks from trees and bushes, and sometimes the roots of wiry plants. Vasilisa's work is to sweep this object made of plant matter over the floors and the yard to keep the place clear of debris. A wise woman keeps her psychic environ uncluttered. She accomplishes such by keeping a clear head, keeping a clear place for her work, working at completing her ideas and projects. For many women, this task requires that they clear a time each day for contemplation, for a space to live whoa. For many women, this task requires that they clear a time each day for contemplation, for a space to live in that is clearly their own, with paper, pens, paints, tools, conversations, time, freedoms that are for this work only. Space to live that is clearly their own. All right, there we go. For a space to live that is clearly their own, with paper, pens, paints, tools, conversations, time, freedom that are for this work only. For many psychoanalysts, psychoanalysis, contemplation, meditation, the taking of solitude, and other experiences of decent and transformation provide this special time and place for the work. Each woman has her own preferences, her own way. If this work can take place in Baba Yaga's hut, so much the better. Even near the hut is better than far away. In any event, one's wild life has to be kept ordered on a regular basis. It is not good enough to go to it for one day or a few days once a year. But because it is Baba Yaga's hut that Vasilisa sweeps, because it is Baba Yaga's yard, we are also speaking of keeping unusual ideas clear and ordered. These ideas include those which are uncommon, mystical, soulful, and uncanny. To sweep the premises means not only to begin to value the non-superficial life, but to care for its orderliness. Sometimes women become confused about soulful work and neglect its architecture till it is taken back by the forest. Gradually, the structures of the psyche are overgrown until they finally are but a hidden archaeologic ruin in the psyche's unconsciousness or unconscious. A cynical and critical sweeping will prevent this from occurring. When women have cleared space, the wild nature will better thrive. To cook for Baba Yaga, we ask literally, how does one feed the Baba Yaga of the Psyche? What does one feed so wild a goddess? Firstly, to cook for the Yaga, one lays a fire. A woman must be willing to burn hot, burn with passion, burn with words, with ideas, with desire for whatever it is that she truly loves. It is actually this persona, it is actually this passion, which causes the cooking. And a woman's original ideas of substance are what is cooked. To cook for the Yaga, one must arrange that one's creative life has a consistent fire under it. Ah, I love that. Most of us would do better if we became more adept at watching the fire under our work. If we watched more closely the cooking process for nourishing the wild self. Too often, we turn away from the pot, from the oven. We forget to watch, forget to add fuel, forget to stir. We mistakenly think the fire and the cooking are like one of those feisty houseplants that can go without water for 8 months before the poor thing keels over. It is not so. The fire requires watching, for it is easy to let the flame go out. The Yaga must be fed. There's hell to pay if she goes hungry. So it is the cooking up of new and completely original things, of new directions, of commitments to one's artwork that continuously nourishes the wild soul. These same things nourish the old wild mother and give her substance in our psyches. Without the fire, our great ideas, our original thoughts, our yearnings and longings remain uncooked, and everyone is unfulfilled. On the other hand, anything we do which has fire will please her and nourish us all. Excuse me. Oh, man. In the development of women, all these motions of homekeeping, the cooking, the washing, the sweeping, quantify something beyond the ordinary. All these metaphors offer ways to think about, to measure, feed, nourish, straighten, cleanse, order the soul life. In all these things, Vasilisa is initiated, and her intuition helps her accomplish the tasks. The intuitive nature carries the ability to measure things at a glance, to weigh in an instant, to clear off the debris around the idea, and to name the essence of the thing, to fire it with vitality, to cook raw ideas, to make food for the psyche. Vasilisa, through the doll of intuition, is learning to sort, understand, keep in order, and clear and clean the psychic premises. Additionally, she learns that the wild mother requires much nourishment in order to do her work. Baba Yaga cannot be put on a lettuce leaf and black coffee diet. If one wishes to be close to her, one has to realize that she has appetite for certain things. If one is to have a relationship with the ancient feminine, one must cook up much. We be cooking, right? Through these chores, Baba Yaga teaches, and Vasilisa learns not to cringe away from the big, the mighty, the cynical, the unforeseen, the unexpected, the vast and grand scale, which is the size of nature, the odd, the strange, and the unusual. Women's cycles, according to Vasilisa's tasks, are these: to cleanse one's thinking, renewing one's values on a regular basis, to clear one's psyche of trivia, sweep one's self, clean up one's thinking and feeling states on a regular basis, to build an enduring fire beneath the creative life, to cook up ideas on a systematic basis, means especially to cook, and with originality, a lot of unprecedented life in order to feed the relationship between oneself and the wildish nature. Vasilisa, via her time with the Yaga, will eventually integrate some of the manner and style of the Yaga. And we too, it is our job, in our own limited human way, to pattern ourselves after her. And this we learn to do. Yet we are odd at the same time, for in Baba Yaga land, there are things that fly in the night and are arisen again at daybreak, all summoned and hidden by the wild, instinctual nature. There are the bones of the dead which still speak, and there are winds and fates and suns, moon and sky, which all live in her great trunk. But she keeps order. Day follows night, season follows season. She is not haphazard. She is both rhyme and reason. In the story, the Yaga finds Vasilisa has completed all the tasks set before her, and the Yaga is pleased, but also a little disappointed that she cannot rail against the girl. And so, just to make sure Vasilisa doesn't take anything for granted, Baba Yaga lets her know, though you managed to do my work once doesn't mean you can do it again. So here's another day of tasks. Let's see how you do, dearie, or else. Vasilisa, again, via the aegis of intuitive guidance, accomplishes the work, and the Yaga gives her the grumpy and begrudging stamp of approval. The kind that always comes from old women who have lived a long time and who have seen much and somewhat wish they hadn't, and are rather proud they have. All right, going into the sixth task, separating this from that. In this part of the tale, Baba Yaga requires two very demanding tasks of Vasilisa. A woman's psychic tasks are these: learning fine discrimination, separating one thing from the other with finest discernment, learning to make fine distinctions in judgment, and that's the sorting the mildewed corn from the good corn and sorting the poppy seeds from the pile of dirt, observing the power of the unconscious and how it works even when the ego is not aware, and that's the pairs of the hands which appear in the air, and more learning about life, the corn, and death, the poppy seeds. Vasilisa is asked to separate four substances: mildewed corn from whole corn and poppy seed from dirt. The intuitive doll completes the sorting of one from the other. Sometimes this sorting process occurs at such a deep level it is barely conscious to us until one day. The sorting spoken of in the tale is the kind which occurs when we face a dilemma or question, but not much is forthcoming to help us solve it. But leave it alone and come back to it later, and there may be a good answer waiting for us where there was nothing before. Or go to sleep, see what you dream. Perhaps the 2 million-year-old woman will come visit you from the nightland. Perhaps she will be bearing the solution, or will show you that the answer is under your bed, or in your pocket, or a book, or behind your ear. It is an observable phenomenon that a question asked before bedtime, with practice, often elicits an answer upon awakening. Ooh. There is something in the psyche, something of the intuitive doll, something under, over, or in the collective consciousness. In the collective unconscious, which sorts the materials while we sleep and dream. And reliance on this attribute is also part of the wild nature. Symbolically, the mildewed corn carries a dual meaning. As a liquor, mildewed corn may be used both as an inebriative and as a medication. There is a fungal condition called corn smut, a rather fuzzy black fungus, which is found in mildewed corn, this being reputed to be hallucinogenic. It is hypothesized by various scholars that hallucinogens from wheat, barley, poppies, or maize were used in the old Eleusinian goddess rites in Greece. Additionally, the sorting of the corn that the Yaga bids Vasilisa do is also related to the gathering of medicines by curanderas, the old woman healers. One can still observe at this work throughout North, Central, and South America today. We see the woman healers' ancient remedies and treatments also in the poppy seed, which is a sporific and barbiturate, as well as in the dirt, which has been used since ancient times and is still used today in poultices and as packs in baths, or even for ingestion under certain circumstances. This is one of the loveliest phrasings in the story. The fresh corn, mildewed corn, poppy seed, and dirt are all remnants of an ancient healing apothecary. The substances are used as balms, salves, infusions, and poultices to hold other medicines on the body. As metaphors, they are also medicines for the mind. Some nourish, others put to rest, some cause languor, others stimulation. They are faucets of the life death life cycles. Baba Yaga is not only asking Vasilisa to separate this from that, to determine the difference between things of like kind, such as real love from false love, or nourishing life from spoiled life, but she is also asking her to distinguish one medicine from another. Like dreams, which can be understood on the objective level but still retain a subjective reality, these elements of food medicines also have symbolic guidance for us. Like Vasilisa, we have to sort out our psychic healing agents, to sort and sort and sort, to understand that food for the psyche is also medicine for the psyche, and to wring the truth, the essence, out of these elements for our own nourishment. All these elements and tasks are teaching Vasilisa about the life, death, life nature, and the give and take of caring for the wild nature. Sometimes, in order to bring a woman closer to this nature, I ask her to keep a garden. Let this be a psychic one, or one with mud, dirt, green, and all the things that surround and help and assail. Let it represent the wild psyche. The garden is a concrete connection to life and death. You could even say there is a religion of garden, for it teaches profound psychological and spiritual lessons. Bam, right? Whatever can happen to a garden can happen to soul and psyche. Too much water, too little water, infestations, heat, storm, flood, invasion, miracles, dying back, coming back, boon, healing, blossoming, bounty, beauty. During the life of the garden, women keep a diary, recording. Let's try that again. During the life of the garden, women keep a diary, recording the signs of life giving and life taking. Each entry cooks up a psychic soup. In the garden, we practice letting thoughts, ideas, preferences, desires, even loves both live and die. We plant, we pull, we bury. We dry seed, sow it, moisten it, support it, harvest. The garden is a meditation practice, that of seeing when it is time for something to die. In the garden, one can see the time for both fruition and for dying back. In the garden, one is moving with rather than against the inhalations and the exhalations of greater wild nature. Through this meditation, we acknowledge that the life death life cycle is a natural one. Both life giving and death dealing natures are waiting to be befriended, forever loved. In this process, we become like the cyclical wild. we have the ability to infuse energy and strengthen life, and to stand out of the way of what dies. The seventh task. After the successful completion of her tasks, Vasilisa asks the Yaga some good questions. The tasks of this time are these: questioning and trying to learn more about the life, death, life nature, and how it functions. And that's Vasilisa asks about the horseman. Learning the truth about being able to understand all the elements of the wild nature. And to know too much can make one old too soon. We will begin with the question, what am I really? What is my work here? The Yaga teaches us that we are life, death, life, that this is our cycle. This is our special insight into the deep feminine. When I was a child, one of my aunts told me our family's legend of the watery women. She said that at the edge of every lake there lived a young woman with old hands. Her first job was to put twos, T-U-Z, what I can only describe to you as souls or soul fire, into dozens of beautiful porcelain ducks. Her second job was to wind the wooden keys in the ducks' backs. When the winding keys ran out and the ducks fell over, their bodies shattered. She was to flap her apron at the souls as they were released and shoo them up into the sky. Her fourth job was to put twos into more beautiful porcelain ducks, wind their keys, and release them to their lives. The twos story is one of the clearest about exactly what it is the life, death, life mother does with her time. Psychically, Mother Nyx, Baba Yaga, the watery woman, La Que Sabe, and Wild Women represent different pictures, different ages, moods, and aspects of the wild mother god. The infusion of twos into our own ideas. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. The infusion of twos into our own ideas, our own lives, the lives of those we touch, that is our work. The shooing of the soul to its home, that is our work. The releasing of a shower of sparks to fill the day, and creating a light so that we can find our way through the night, that is our work. Vasilisa asks about the men on horseback she has seen while finding her way to Baba Yaga's hut. The white man on the white horse, the red man on the red horse, the black man on the black horse. The Yaga, like Dreamer, or rather, the Yaga, like Demeter, is an old horse mother goddess associated with the power of the mare and fecundity as well. Is that how you say that? Baba Yaga's hut is a stable for the many colored horses and their riders. These pairs pull the sun up and across the sky by day and pull the cover of darkness over the sky at night. But there is more. The black, red, and white horsemen symbolize the ancient colors, connoting birth, life, and death. I mean, does that make connotating? Connoting birth, life, and death. These colors also represent old ideas of descent, death, and rebirth. The black for dissolving of one's old values, the red for the sacrifice of one's previously held illusions, and the white as the new light, the new knowing that comes from having experienced the first two. Wow. It's like, yeah, that's a lot. It's like those two snakes that die before the third wisdom snake appears. You got to kill him. Kind of, right? The old words used in medieval times are negredo, black, rubedo, red, and albedo, right, white. These describe an alchemy which follows the circuit of the wild woman, the work of the life, death, life mother. Without the symbols of daybreak, rising light, and mysterious dark, she would not be who she is. Without the rising of hope in our hearts, without the steady light, no matter if a candle or a sun, to tell us this from that in our lives, without a night from which all things can be soothed, from which all things can be born, we too would not benefit from our wildish natures. Ooh, from all things born. Wow. The colors in the tale are extremely precious, for each has its death nature and its life nature. Black is the color of mud, the fertile, the basic stuff into which ideas are sown. Yet black is the color also of death, the blackening of the light. The black has even a third aspect. It is also the color associated with that world between the worlds which La Loba stands upon. For black is the color of descent. Black is a promise that you will soon know something you did not know before. Red is the color of sacrifice, of rage, of murder, of being tormented and killed. Yet red is also the color of vibrant life, dynamic emotion, arousal, eros, and desire. It is a color that is considered strong medicine for psychic malaise, a color which rouses appetite. There is throughout the world a figure known as the Red Mother. She is not as well known as the Black Mother or Black Madonna, but she is the watcher of things coming through. She is especially propitiated by those who are about to give birth. For whosoever leaves this world or comes into this world has to pass through her red river. Red is a promise that a rising up or a borning is soon to come. White is the color of new, the pure, the pristine. It is also the color of soul free of the body. It is the color of soul free of the body, of spirit unencumbered by the physical. It is the color of the essential nourishment, mother's milk. Conversely, it is the color of the dead, of things which have lost their rosiness, their flush of vitality. When there is white, everything is, for the moment, tabula rasa, unwritten upon. White is a promise that there is nourishment enough for things to begin anew, that the emptiness or the void would be filled. Besides the horsemen, both Vasilisa and her doll are blessed in red, or dressed in red, white, and black as well. Vasilisa and her doll are the alchemical anlogen. Together, they cause Vasilisa to be a little life, death, life mother in the becoming. There are two epiphanies, or life givings, in the story. Vasilisa's life is revivified by the doll and by her meeting with Baba Yaga, and thereby through all the tasks she masters. There are also two deaths in the story, that of the original Too Good Mother, and also that of the stepfamily. Yet we see easily that the deaths are proper, and that they ultimately cause the young Psyche a much fuller life. So, this letting live, letting die is very important. It is the basic and natural rhythm which women are meant to understand and live. Grasping this rhythm lessens fear, for we anticipate the future, and the ground swells and the emptyings out it will hold. The doll and the Yaga are the wild mothers of all women. They provide the penetrating intuitive gifts from the personal level as well as the divine. This is the extreme paradox and teaching of the instinctual nature. It is a sort of wolf Buddhism. What is one is both. What is two makes three. What lives shall die. What dies shall live. This is what Baba Yaga means when she says, to know too much can make one old too soon. There is a certain amount there's a certain amount we all should know at each age and each stage of our lives. In the tale, to know the meaning of the hands that appear and wring out the oil from the corn and the poppy seed, both life-giving and death-dealing medicines in and of themselves, is to ask to know too much. Vasilisa asks about the horses, but not about the hands. When I was a young adult, I asked my friend Bulgana Robnovic, an elderly teller from the Caucasus, who lived in a tiny Russian farm community in Minnesota, about the Baba Yaga. How did she see this part of the tale where Vasilisa just knows to stop asking questions? She looked at me with the lashless eyes of an old dog and said, "Dairy, there are simply things which cannot be known." She smiled bewitchingly, crossed her thick ankles, and that was that. To try to understand the mystery of the appearing and disappearing servants who come in the form of disembodied hands, which is like all of the ace cards of every suit of tarot, is akin to trying to absolutely comprehend the core of the numinosum. Cool. Numinosum. By warning Vasilisa away from the question, the doll and the Yaga caution Vasilisa about calling upon too much of the numinosity of the underworld all at once. And this is right and proper, for though we visit there, we do not want to become entrapped. Oh, enraptured and thereby trapped there. It is another set of cycles that Yaga alludes to here, cycles of a woman's life. As a woman lives them, she will understand more and more of these interior feminine rhythms. Among them, the rhythms of creativity, of birthing psychic babies, and perhaps also human ones, the rhythms of solitude, of play, of rest, of sexuality, and of the hunt. One needs not push it. The understanding will come. Some things must be accepted as being out of our reach, even though they act upon us, and we are enriched by them. There is a saying in my family: some things are God's business. So, by the end of these tasks, the legacy of the wild mothers is deepened, and intuitive powers emanate from both the human and soulful sides of the psyche. Now we have the doll as teacher on one side and the Baba Yaga on the other. Ooh, awesome. Hey, Saturnian, welcome in, man. Awesome. I've got about 10 pages left before I'm calling it, and I hope the battery lasts. I hope I don't have to change it again. The 8th task, standing on all fours. Baba Yaga is repelled by Vasilisa's blessing from her deceased mother and gives Vasilisa light, a fiery skull on a stick, and tells her to go. The tasks of this part of the tale are these: taking on immense power to see and affect others, that's receiving the skull, looking at one's life situation in this new light, it's finding a way back to the old step family. Wow. Is Baba Yaga repelled because Vasilisa has received her mother's blessing, or rather is she just repelled by blessedness in general? Actually, not quite either. Considering the later monotheistic overlays to this story, it would also appear that here the story has been shifted to make the Yaga seem afeared of Vasilisa's having been blessed, thereby demonizing this old wild mother from perhaps as far back as time as the Neolithic era, with an eye to elevating the newer Christian religion and discouraging the older one. The original word in the story might have been changed to blessing to encourage conversation, but I think the essence of original and archetypal meaning is still present. The issue of the mother's blessing can be interpreted this way: the Yaga is not repelled by the fact of the blessing, but is rather put off by the fact that the blessing is from the too good mother, the nice, the sweet, the darling of the psyche. If the Yaga is true to form, she would not care to be too close to, nor too long near, the too conforming, the too demure side of the feminine nature. Although the Yaga could blow life's breath into a mouse child with infinite tenderness, she could be said to know well enough to stay in her own land. Her land is the underworld of the psyche. The too good mother's land is that of the topside world. Although sweetness can fit into the wild cannot long fit into the sweetness. When women integrate this aspect of the Yaga, they change from accepting without question every tinker, every barb, every dadu, everything that comes their way. To gain a little distance from the sweet blessing of the too good mother, a woman gradually learns to not just look, but to squint and to peer, and then, more and more, to suffer no fools. Having now, through serving the Yaga, created a capacity within herself which she did not have before, Vasilisa receives a portion of the wild hag's power. Some women are afraid this deep knowing via instinct and intuition will cause them to be reckless or thoughtless. But this is an unfounded fear. Quite the contrary. Lack of intuition, lack of sensitivity to cycles, or not following one's knowing causes choices which turn out poorly, even disastrously. More often, this Yagayan kind of knowledge moves women by small increments and most often gives direction by conveying clear pictures of what lies beneath or behind the motives, ideas, actions, and words of others. If the instinctive psyche warns, beware, then the woman must pay heed. For if the deep intuition says, do this, do that, go this way, stop here, go forward, the woman must make corrections to her plan as needed. Intuition is not to be consulted once and then forgotten. It is not disposable. It is to be consulted at all steps along the way, whether the woman's work be clashing with a demon in the interior or compelling the task in the outer world. It does not matter whether a woman's concerns and aspirations are personal or global. Before all else, every action begins with strengthening the spirit. Hey, welcome back, Heidi. And all lurkers, whoever else is up in here with us. Thank you. Before all else, every action begins with the strengthening of spirit. Now, let us consider the skull with fiery light. It is a symbol associated with what some old-style archaeologists called ancestral worship. In later archaeo-religious versions of the story, the skulls on sticks are said to be those of humans whom the Yaga has killed and eaten. But in the older religious rites, which practiced ancestral kinship, bones were recognized as the agents for calling the spirits, the skulls being the most salient part. Ooh, I've read about that before. In ancestral kinship, it is believed that the special and timeless knowledge of the old ones of the community lives on in their very bones after death. The skull is thought to be the dome which houses a powerful remnant of the departed soul, one which, if asked, can call the entire spirit of the dead person back for a time in order to be consulted. It is easy to imagine that the soul self lives right in the bony cathedral of the forehead, with the eyes as windows, mouth as door, and ears as the winds. So when, that was the wrong, that was the wrong pipe. Excuse me. So, So when the Yaga gives Vasilisa a lighted skull, she is giving her an old woman icon, an ancestral knower, to carry with her for life. She is initiating her into a matrilineal legacy of knowing, one which, in the caves and canyons of the Psyche, remains whole and thriving. So off goes Vasilisa into the dark forest with the fiery skull. She wandered about to find the Yaga. Now she returns to home, more sure, more certain, hips aimed straight ahead. Excuse me. This is the ascent from the initiation of deep intuition. Oh, excuse me. Intuition has been set into Vasilisa like a center jewel on a crown. When a woman has come this far, she has managed to leave the protection of her own inner too good mother, learn to expect and deal with adversity in the outer world in a powerful rather than complicit manner, and has become aware of her own shadowy and inhibitory stepmother and stepsisters in the destruction they mean to do to her. She has negotiated through the dark while listening to her inner voice and has been able to stand the face of the hag, which is a side of her own nature, but also a powerful wild nature. Thus, she is enabled to understand awesome and conscious power, her own and that of others. No more, but I'm afraid of him/her/it. She has served the hag goddess of her psyche, fed the relationship, purified the personae, kept clear thinking. She has gotten to know this wild feminine force and its habits. She has learned to differentiate, to separate thought from feeling. She has learned to recognize the great wild power in her own psyche. She has learned about life, death, life, and women's gift about it all. With these newly acquired Yaga skills, she need not lack in confidence or potency anymore, having been given the legacy of the mothers, intuition from the human side of her nature, and a wild knowing from the Lakesabe side of her psyche. She is well enabled. She goes forward in life, feet placed surely, one after the other, womanly. She has coalesced all her power and sees the world now and her life through this new light. Let us see what happens when a woman behaves thusly. Ha ha ha. And to the ninth task. Oh my gosh, I hope we get through it without the battery going. But if the battery does go, I'm just going to keep narrating and let it be black until the end. That's my plan. Oh my gosh, carrot cake. I'm really hungry. Okay, all right, here we go. The ninth task, recasting the shadow. Vasilisa's journey towards home with the fiery skull on the stick. She almost throws it away, but the skull reassures her. Once back home, the skull watches the stepsisters and stepmother and burns them to ashes. Vasilisa lives well and for a long time afterward. These are the psychic tasks of this time. Using one's acute vision, the fiery eyes, to recognize and react to the negative shadow of one's own psyche and or negative aspects of persons and events in the outer world. Recasting the negative shadows in one's psyche with hag fire, that's the wicked stepfamily, which formerly tortured Vasilisa, is turned to cinders. Haha, Cinderella. Vasilisa and the fiery skull held before her as she walks through the forest, and her doll indicates the way back. Go this way, now this way. Vasilisa, who used to be a blueberry-eyed sweet muffin, is now a woman walking with her power preceding her. A fiery light emanates from her eyes, or from the eyes, ears, and nose, the mouth of the skull. It is another representation of all the psychic processes which have to do with discrimination. It is also related to ancestor kinship and therefore to remembering. If the Yaga had given Vasilisa a knee bone on a stick, that would require a different symbolic rendering. If she had given her a wrist bone, a neck bone, or any other bone, other than perhaps the female pelvis, it would not mean the same thing. So the skull is another representation of intuition. It does not hurt the Yaga or Vasilisa. It has a discrimination of its own. Vasilisa now carries the blaze of knowing. She has these fierce senses. She can hear, see, smell, and taste things out. And she has herself. She has the doll. She has Yaga sensibilities. Now she has the fiery skull as well. Momentarily, Vasilisa becomes afraid of the power she carries, and she thinks to throw the fiery skull away. With this formidable power at her behest, it is no wonder the ego thinks perhaps it would be better, easier, safer to discard this burning light, for it is so much, and through it, Vasilisa has become so much. But a supernatural voice from the skull instructs her to stay calm and to proceed. And this she is able to do. Each woman who retrieves her intuition and Yaga-like powers reaches a point where she is tempted to throw them away. For what is the use of seeing and knowing all these things? The skull light is not forgiving. It is light. The old are elderly, the beautiful, lush, the silly, foolish, the drunk are drunken, the unfaithful are infidels. Things which are incredible are noted as miracles. Skull light sees what it sees. It is the eternal light, and right out front, shining ahead of a woman, like a presence which goes a little bit before her and reports back to her what it has found ahead. It is her perpetual reconnaissance. Yet, when one sees and senses thusly, then one has to work to do something about what one sees. To possess good intuition, goodly power causes work. It causes work, firstly, in the watching and comprehending of negative forces and imbalances both inward and outward. Secondly, it causes striving in the gathering up of will in order to do something about what one sees, be it for good or balance or to allow something to live or die. It is true. I will not lie to you. It is easier to throw away the light and go back to sleep. It is true. It is hard to hold the skull light out before us sometimes. For with it, we clearly see all sides of ourselves and others, both the disfigured and the divine, and all conditions in between. Yet, with this light, the miracles of deep beauty in the world and in humans come to consciousness. With this penetrating light, one can see past the bad action to the good heart. One can espy the sweet spirit crushed beneath hatred. One can understand much instead of being perplexed only. This light can differentiate layers of personality, intention, and motives in others. It can determine consciousness and unconsciousness in self and others. It is the wand of knowing. It is the mirror in which all things are sensed and seen. It is the deep, wild nature. Yet there are times when its reports are painful and almost too much to bear. For also the fiery skull points out where there are betrayals brewing, where there is faintness of courage in those who speak otherwise. It points out envy lying like cold grease behind a warm smile. It points out the looks which are mere masks for dislike. It regards oneself. Its light is equally bright. It shines on our treasures and on our foibles. In these knowings, which are the most difficult to face, it is at this point that we always want to throw away all this damnable, shrewd knowing of ours. It is here that we feel, if we will not ignore it, a strong force from the self saying, "Do not throw me away, keep me, you'll see." As Vasilisa weaves through the forest, she no doubt is thinking, too, about the stepfamily which had maliciously sent her off to die. And though she herself is sweet of heart, the skull is not sweet. Its work is to be sightful. So when she wishes to toss it away, we know that she is thinking of the pain it causes to know some things and certain things about self, about others, about the nature of the world. She arrives home, and the stepmother and stepsisters tell her they have no fire. They had no fire, no energy while she was away, that no matter what they did, they could not make light. And this is the exact truth in any woman's psyche when she is in her wildish power. During that time, the things which have oppressed her have no libido. It is all taken up in the good journey. Without libido, the nastier aspects of the psyche, those which exploit the creative life of a woman or encourage her to squander her life with minutia, these become like gloves with no hands on them. The fiery skull begins to peer at the stepsisters and stepmother, watching and watching them intently. Can a negative aspect of psyche be reduced to cinder by being watched and watched? Yes, indeed it can. Holding it in consistent consciousness can cause the thing to dehydrate. In one version of the tale, the errant family members are burnt to a crisp. In another version, to three small black cinders. The three small black cinders hold a very old and interesting idea. The little black dit or dot is often thought of as the beginning of life. In the Old Testament, when that God made first man and first woman, he fashioned them from earth, dirt, mud, depending on which translation one reads. Just how much earth? No one says. But among other creation stories, the beginning of the world and of its inhabitants is often made from the dit, from one grain, one single tiny dark dot of something. In this manner, the three small cinders are in the province of the life, death, life mother. They are reduced down almost to nothing in the psyche. They are deprived of libido. Now something new can occur. In most cases, when we consciously deprive a psychic thing of juice, it shrivels, and its energy is released or reconfigured. There is another side to this draining of the destructive step family. One cannot keep the consciousness one has earned by meeting the hag goddess and carrying the fiery light and so forth, if one lives with cruel people outwardly or inwardly. If you are surrounded by people who cross their eyes and look with disgust up at the ceiling when you are in the room, when you speak, when you act and react, then you are with the people who douse passions, yours and probably their own as well. These are not the people who care about you, your work, your life. A woman must choose her friends and lovers wisely, for both can become like a bad stepmother and rotten stepsisters. In the case of our lovers, we often invest them with the power of a great mage, a great magician. This is easy to do, for if we become truly intimate, it is like unlocking a lead crystal atelier, a magic one, or so it feels to us. A lover can engender and or destroy even our most durable connections to our own cycles and ideas. The destructive lover must be avoided. A better sort of lover is one finely wrought of strong psychic muscle and tender flesh. For wild woman is also for wild woman, it also helps if the lover is just a little bit psychic too, a person who can see into her heart. When the wildish woman has an idea, the friend or lover will say, "Well, I don't know, sounds really dumb, grandiose, undoable, expensive, etc. to me." The right friend will never say that. They might say instead, "I don't know if I understand. Tell me how you see it. Tell me how it will work." Having a lover or a friend who regards you as a living, growing creatura, a being, just as much as the tree from the ground, or a ficus in the house, or a rose garden out, excuse me, or a rose garden out in the side yard, having a lover and friends who look at you as a true living, breathing entity, one that is human, but made of very fine and moist and magical things as well, a lover and friends who support the creatura in you, these are the people you are looking for. They will be the lovers, not to mention teachers. It is critical to remaining conscious, remaining intuitive, remaining in charge of the fiery light that sees and knows. The way to maintain one's connection to the wild is to ask yourself what it is you want. This is the sorting of the seed from the dirt. One of the most important discriminations we can make in this matter is the difference between things that beckon to us and things that call from our souls. This is how it works. Imagine a smorgasbord laid out with whipped cream and salmon and bagels and roast beef and fruit salad and green enchiladas and rice and curry and yogurt and many, many things for table after table after table. Imagine that you survey it all and that you see certain things that appeal to you. You remark to yourself, "Oh, I would really like to have one of those. Oh, one of those. And some of this other thing." Some women and men make all their life decisions in this way. There is around and about us a constant beckoning world, one which insinuates itself into our lives, arousing and creating appetite where there was little or none before. In this sort of choice, we choose a thing because it just happened to be beneath our noses at that moment in time. It is not necessarily what we want, but it is interesting, and the longer we gaze at it, the more compelling it becomes. When we are connected to the instinctual self, to the soul of the feminine, which is natural and wild, then instead of looking over whatever happens to be on display, we say to ourselves, "What am I hungry for?" Without looking at anything outwardly, we venture inward and ask, "What do I long for? What do I wish for now?" Alternative phrases are, "What do I crave? What do I desire? For what do I yearn?" And the answer usually arrives rapidly. "Oh, I think I want, you know, what would be really good in is some this or that. Ah, yes, that's what I really want." Is this Is that on the smorgasbord? Maybe yes and maybe no. In most cases, probably not. We'll have to quest for a little bit. We will have to quest for it a little bit. sometimes for a considerable time. But in the end, we shall find it and be glad we took soundings about our deeper longings. Soundings. I like that. The discrimination which Vasilisa learns as she separates poppy seeds from dirt and mildewed corn from fresh corn is one of the most difficult things to learn, for it takes spirit, will, and soulfulness, and it often means holding out for what one wants. Nowhere can this be seen more clearly than in the choice of mates and lovers. A lover cannot be chosen a la smorgasbord. A lover has to be chosen from soul craving. To choose just because something mouthwatering stands before you will never satisfy the hunger of the soul self. And that is what intuition is for. It is a direct messenger of the soul. To amplify further, if you are presented with an opportunity to buy a bicycle or an opportunity to travel to Egypt and see the pyramids, you have to set the opportunity aside for the moment, enter into yourself and ask, what am I hungry for? What do I long for? Maybe I'm hungry for a motorcycle instead of a bicycle. Maybe I'm hungry for a trip to see my grandmother who's coming up in years. The decisions do not have to be so large. Sometimes the matter to be weighed is taking a walk versus making a poem. Momentous or mundane, the idea is to have consulted the instinctual self through one or several aspects available to you. These symbolized by the doll, the old Baba Yaga, and the fiery skull. Another way to strengthen connection to intuition is to refuse to allow anyone to repress your vivid energies. That means your opinions, your thoughts, your ideas, your values, your morals, and your ideals. There is very little right or wrong, or good or bad, or there is very little right/wrong or good/bad in this world. There is, however, useful and not useful. There are also things that are sometimes destructive, as well as things which are engendering. There are actions that are properly integrated and intentioned, and those that are not. But as you well know, a garden has to be but as you well know, a garden has to be turned in the fall in order to prepare it for the spring. It cannot bloom all the time. But let your own innate cycles dictate the upsurges and the downward cycles of your life, not other forces or persons outside yourself, nor negative complexes from within. There are certain constant entropies and creatings which are part of our inner cycles. It is our task to synchronize with them. Like the chambers of a heart which fill and empty and fill again, we learn the rhythm of this life cycle instead of becoming martyred by it. Liken it to jump rope. The rhythm already exists. You sway back and forth until you are copying the rhythm. Then you jump in. That's how it's done. It is no more fancy than that. Further, intuition provides options. When you are connected to the instinctual self, you always have at least four choices, the two opposites, and then the middle ground, and taken under further contemplation. If you're not vested in the intuitive, you may think you only have one choice, but that it seems an undesirable one, and perhaps you feel that you ought to suffer about it and submit and force yourself to do it. No, there's a better way. Listen to the inner hearing, the inner seeing, the inner being. Follow it. It knows what to do next. One of the most remarkable things about using intuition and the instinctive nature is that it causes a sure-footed spontaneity to erupt. Spontaneity doesn't mean being unwise. It is not a pounce and blurt attribute. Good boundaries are still important. Um, man, she, mm, I don't even know how to say. She, ske. Oh no, skehe, skeheraha, skehe. All right, looking it up. SCH. I can't. I'm really. And it's on two lines, of course. Also, by the way. Okay, so SCH EHE EHE RAZADE. Boom. Hey, I said go. All right. How do I say and what does it mean? A fictional wife of a sultan. Oh. And the narrator of the tales of the Arabian Nights entertainments. Okay, how do you say it? Pronunciation. Okay.
Scheherazade. Scheherazade.
Scheherazade.
Scheherazade.
Scheherazade. Wow, what a word. Cool. Scheherazade.
Scheherazade.
Okay. All right. Scheherazade, for instance, had pretty good boundaries. She used her cleverness to please while at the same time positioning herself to be valued. Being real doesn't mean being reckless. It means allowing la voz mythologica, the mythological voice, to speak. One does this by shutting off the ego for a while and letting that which wishes to speak, speak. In the consensual reality, we all have access to little wild mothers in the flesh. These are women who, as soon as you see them, something in you leaps and something in you thinks, Mama. You take one look and think, I am her progeny. I am her child. She is my mother, my grandmother. Oh, so maybe more like Mama. In the case of un hombre con pechos, figuratively, a man with breasts, you might think, oh, grandfather, or oh, my brother, my friend. You just know that this man is nurturing. Paradoxically, they are strongly masculine and strongly feminine at the same time. They are like fairy godmother, like mentor, like the mother you never had or did not have long enough. That is an un hombre con pechos. All these human beings could be called little wild mothers. Usually, everyone has at least one. If we are lucky, throughout a lifetime, we will have several. You are usually grown, or at least in your late adolescence, by the time you meet them. They are vastly different from the too good mother. The little wild mothers guide you, burst with pride over your accomplishments. They are critical of blockages and mistaken notions in and around your creative, sensual, spiritual, and intellectual life. Their purpose is to help you, to care about your art, and to reattach you to the wildish instincts, and to elicit your original best. They guide the restoration of the intuitive life, and they are thrilled when you make contact with the doll, proud when you find the Baba Yaga, and rejoicing when you see the coming back with the fiery skull held out before you. We have seen that to remain a dumbling and too sweet is dangerous, but perhaps you still are not convinced. Perhaps you're thinking, oh lordy, who wants to be like Vasilisa? And I'm telling you, you do. You want to be like her, accomplish what she has accomplished, and follow the trail she has left behind, for it is the way of retaining and developing your soul. The wild woman is the one who dares, who creates, and who destroys. She is the primitive and inventing soul that makes all creative acts and arts possible. She creates a forest around us, and we begin to deal with life from that fresh and original perspective. So, here at the end of the resetting of initiation into the feminine psyche, we have a young woman with formidable experiences who has learnt to follow her knowing. She has endured through all the tasks to a full initiation. The crown is hers. Perhaps recognizing intuition is the easier of the tasks, but holding it in consciousness and letting live what can live and letting die what must die is by far the more strenuous yet so satisfying aim. Baba Yaga is the same as Mother Nyx, the mother of the world, another life, death, life goddess. The life, death, life goddess is always also a creator goddess. She makes, fashions, breathes life into. She is there to receive the soul when the breath has run out. Following her footsteps, we endeavor to learn to let be born what must be born, whether all the right people are there or not. Nature does not ask permission. Blossom and birth whenever you feel like it. As adults, we need little permission, but rather more engendering, much more encouraging of the wild cycles, much more original vision. To let things die is the theme at the end of the tale. Vasilisa has learned well. Does she collapse into a fit of high pitched shrieking as the skull burns into the malicious ones? No. What must die, dies. How does one make such a decision? One knows. La que sabe knows. Ask within for her advice. She is the mother of the ages. Nothing surprises her. She has seen it all. For most women, to let die is not against their natures, it is only against their training. This can be reversed. We all know in Los Ovarios when it is time for life, when it is time for death. We might try to fool ourselves for various reasons, but we know. By the light of the fiery skull, we know. Wow. So, yeah, that was chapter 3. We did it. Oh, my goodness. So, thank you for bearing with me, you guys. I've been at it for 2.5 hours. Heidi, I love you. I love you. I miss you. It's wonderful to see you. And thanks to everyone. Thanks to everyone for all of your support, all of your time and your energy, for learning new things with me. And yeah, we'll do it again. We'll do it again soon. Probably tomorrow. We'll see what shakes. Yeah. So wishing you a wonderful until thens. I appreciate you. Mwah. I'll see you very soon.